They laughed as they pulled the trigger. 9 law enforcement officers dead, their names erased from history books while the killers became legends. This is the story you think you know about Bonnie and Clyde, but everything you've been told is a lie. Because the real story? It's so much darker, so much more violent, and so much more disturbing than any Hollywood movie dared to show you. By the time their bullet-riddled bodies were pulled from that blood-soaked Ford V8 in 1934, they had left a trail of devastation across 5 states, a body count that included lawmen, innocent bystanders, and anyone who made the fatal mistake of standing in their way. But here's what nobody talks about. Bonnie Parker wasn't the gun-toting femme fatale you've seen in the films. She was something far more chilling. And Clyde Barrow? He wasn't a Robin Hood figure stealing from the rich. He was a stone-cold killer who murdered for sport, for survival, and sometimes just because he could. The question isn't how they died. The question is, how did 2 small-town nobodies from Texas become the most wanted criminals in American history? And why did America fall in love with them while they were slaughtering its protectors? Let's go back to where it all began. The dusty, desperate landscape of Depression-era America, 1932. The economy had collapsed. Banks were foreclosing on farms. Families were starving. And in the heart of Texas, 2 young people were about to meet and ignite a crime spree that would terrorize the nation for 2 blood-soaked years. Bonnie Elizabeth Parker was born in 1910 in Rowena, Texas. A waitress, a poet, a high school dropout with dreams bigger than her tiny town could contain. She was married at 15 to a man who ended up in prison. By 19, she was bored, trapped, and hungry for something more. She was 4'10", weighed less than 90 pounds, and wrote poetry about death and destiny in her spare time. She was not the hardened criminal you'd imagine. Not yet. Clyde Chestnut Barrow was born in 1909 in Ellis County, Texas, into grinding poverty that shaped every violent choice he would make. He was a musician, a mechanic, and a petty thief who'd already done hard time at Eastham Prison Farm, a place so brutal, so savage, that Clyde emerged from it fundamentally broken. He'd seen men beaten to death. He'd been sexually assaulted by other inmates. And he'd made a decision. He would never go back to prison alive. Never. That vow would cost 9 lawmen their lives. They met in January 1930 at a friend's house in West Dallas. The attraction was instant, magnetic, almost supernatural. Bonnie was drawn to Clyde's danger, his rebellion, his refusal to submit. Clyde saw in Bonnie a partner who wouldn't flinch, wouldn't betray him, wouldn't leave. Within weeks, Clyde was arrested for burglary. Bonnie smuggled a gun into the jail. He escaped. That's when the killing began. But here's what most people don't understand about the Barrow gang. They weren't master criminals. They were desperate, reckless, and incredibly lucky. Until they weren't. They robbed small-town gas stations and mom-and-pop grocery stores, not banks. They stole cars constantly because they kept wrecking them. They slept in stolen vehicles, ate cold beans from cans, and were always one step ahead of the law, or one step away from death. The romance? That was real. The poetry Bonnie wrote? That was real too. But so was the violence. So were the murders. And so was the blood. The first lawman to die was Marshal Henry D. Humphrey in Stringtown, Oklahoma, April 1932, though some historians dispute whether Clyde actually pulled that trigger. But there's no dispute about what happened on August 5, 1932 in Atoka, Oklahoma. Sheriff C.G. Maxwell and Deputy Eugene C. Moore approached a parked car at a dance. Clyde Barrow opened fire. Moore died instantly, shot in the head. Maxwell survived but was forever changed. Clyde and another gang member, Raymond Hamilton, sped away into the night. They'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Killing a cop wasn't just murder, it was a declaration of war. And the Barrow gang embraced that war with terrifying enthusiasm. December 1932, Doyle Johnson, a 27-year-old deputy in Temple, Texas, was shot and killed during a car theft. January 1933, Deputy Malcolm Davis in West Dallas, Texas, gunned down during a raid on the Barrow family home. Clyde shot him without hesitation, without mercy. He died on his daughter's 6th birthday. But April 1933 is when things spiraled into pure chaos. The gang, now including Clyde's brother Buck and Buck's wife Blanche, rented an apartment in Joplin, Missouri. Neighbors reported suspicious activity, multiple cars, late-night comings and goings, the smell of gunpowder. On April 13th, two officers, Constable J.W. Wes Harriman and Detective Harry McGinnis, approached the garage. What happened next was an execution. The gang opened fire with automatic weapons, bars, shotguns, pistols. Harriman was killed instantly. McGinnis died later from his wounds. The gang escaped in a hail of bullets, leaving behind a crime scene that looked like a war zone. But they also left something else: rolls of undeveloped film. When police processed those photos, they found images of Bonnie and Clyde posing with guns, smoking cigars, playing at being gangsters. Those photos made them famous. Those photos made them icons. And those photos sealed their fate. Now the entire Midwest was hunting them. Wanted posters plastered every post office and police station from Texas to Minnesota. The reward for their capture: thousands of dollars, a fortune during the Depression. But the Barrow Gang wasn't slowing down. They were accelerating toward disaster. June 1933, Alma, Arkansas. The gang was cornered at the Red Crown Tourist Court. In the ensuing shootout, Buck Barrow was shot in the head. Blanche was partially blinded by glass shards, but they escaped. Barely. Days later, in Platte City, Missouri, another ambush. This time, Buck took multiple gunshots. The gang fled into the woods near Dexter, Iowa, where locals and law enforcement finally surrounded them. Buck Barrow died from his injuries days later. Blanche was captured. Bonnie and Clyde, both wounded, somehow escaped again, stealing a car from a farm and vanishing like ghosts. But here's where the story gets even darker. On November 22, 1933, Clyde Barrow and a new accomplice ambushed and killed Constable Collie C. Cal Campbell near Commerce, Oklahoma. Campbell was well-liked, experienced, and didn't see it coming. He was simply executing his duty when Barrow's bullets cut him down. Then, on April 1, 1934, Easter Sunday, near Grapevine, Texas, two young highway patrolmen, H.D. Murphy and Edward Bryant Wheeler, spotted a car parked suspiciously on a rural road. They approached. Bonnie and Clyde opened fire with automatic weapons. Murphy, just 23 years old, died almost instantly. Wheeler, 26, was executed as he lay wounded on the ground, shot in the face at close range. Both men were fathers. Both were dead before they hit the dirt. If you're captivated by these dark, real stories from the Old West and Depression-era America, stories that Hollywood sanitized and history tried to forget, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It genuinely helps us continue bringing you these deep dives into the most notorious criminals in American history. And trust me, the ending of Bonnie and Clyde's story, you won't believe how it actually went down. 5 days later, April 6, 1934, near Miami, Oklahoma, Constable William Cal Campbell was killed. Yet another lawman who made the fatal mistake of crossing paths with the Barrow Gang. But this murder would be their last, because now former Texas Ranger Frank Hamer was on their trail, and Frank Hamer didn't miss. Frank Hamer was a legend, a man who'd survived more than 50 gunfights, who'd tracked down countless outlaws, and who had a reputation for being relentless, methodical, and utterly without mercy when it came to cop killers. He was hired specifically to hunt Bonnie and Clyde, and he studied them like a scientist studies a virus. He tracked their movements, interviewed their families, analyzed their patterns. He learned that they always circled back to Louisiana, to the back roads near Gibbsland, where Clyde's associate Henry Methvin's family lived. Hamer knew that Bonnie and Clyde were creatures of habit, and habits get you killed. On May 23, 1934, just after 9 a.m., on a dusty road near Sales, Louisiana, Frank Hamer and 5 other lawmen set up an ambush. They forced Henry Methvin's father to park his truck on the side of the road, bait for the trap. When Bonnie and Clyde's stolen Ford V8 appeared, slowing down to see if Methvin's father needed help, the posse opened fire. They didn't shout a warning. They didn't ask for surrender. They simply unleashed. Over 130 rounds in less than 2 minutes. The car was shredded. Bonnie Parker died almost instantly, her body torn apart by rifle fire. Clyde Barrow, the man who swore he'd never be taken alive, died slumped over the wheel, his foot still on the accelerator. When the shooting stopped, the silence was deafening. The posse approached cautiously, weapons still raised. What they found inside that car was carnage. Blood, shattered glass, spent shell casings, and 2 bodies so riddled with bullets that They were barely recognizable. But here's the part that haunts historians. The lawmen kept firing even after Bonnie and Clyde were clearly dead. Some say it was justice, some say it was revenge. Others say it was simply what happens when you kill 9 cops and terrorize a nation for 2 years. The bodies were taken to Arcadia, Louisiana, where crowds of over 20,000 people gathered to see the famous outlaws laid out in a local furniture store that doubled as a morgue. Souvenir hunters tried to cut off locks of Bonnie's hair, pieces of Clyde's clothing. It was a circus, a spectacle, a grotesque celebration. The 9 lawmen killed by the Barrow Gang were Deputy Eugene C. Moore, Deputy Malcolm Davis, Town Marshal Henry D. Humphrey, disputed, Detective Harry McGinnis, Constable J.W. Harriman, Constable Cal Campbell, Highway Patrolman H.D. Murphy, Highway Patrolman Edward Bryant Wheeler, and Constable William Campbell. Their names should be remembered. Their families should be honored. But for decades, it was Bonnie and Clyde who got the songs, the movies, the fame. So why did America romanticize them? Why did 2 mass murderers become folk heroes? Maybe it's because during the Depression, people were so desperate, so angry at banks and authority, that they rooted for anyone who fought back, even killers. Maybe it's because Bonnie wrote poetry that made them seem human, vulnerable, almost tragic. Or maybe it's because we've always had a dark fascination with beautiful, doomed lovers who go down in a blaze of bullets and bad decisions. But here's the truth that no film ever captured. Bonnie and Clyde weren't heroes. They weren't rebels with a cause. They were killers, desperate, damaged, and dangerous. They robbed the poor as much as the rich. They murdered lawmen who were just doing their jobs, men with families, with children, with futures. And in the end, they died exactly as they lived, violently, brutally, and without mercy. The bullet-riddled Ford V8 that became their coffin. It was sold and toured the country as a macabre attraction. Bonnie's mother refused to allow her to be buried next to Clyde, honoring her daughter's final wish to be separated from the man who led her to destruction. Clyde was buried in Dallas. Bonnie was buried separately. Even in death, the romance was a lie. If you want more true stories from the darkest, most brutal corners of American crime history, stories that pull back the curtain on the legends and show you the blood-soaked reality underneath, make sure you subscribe and leave a like. Your support means everything and helps us keep digging into these forgotten truths. And here's my question for you. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Drop your city and country below. I want to know where in the world people are still fascinated by these dark American legends. And don't go anywhere, because there's another nightmare from America's criminal past waiting for you in the next video. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.